Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Very good afternoon, dear my brothers and sisters. I wish you are in the best of health. Now, unfortunately, we cannot open my class because you know that since last week, my class was in trouble. So we cannot access it. Therefore, we just focus on the Microsoft Teams. On this regard, I'm trying to share with you the slide here. Can you see, by the way, the slide, dear brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you have already see the slide, we can continue. Then you can just double check with the textbook. So here we just go to the second chapter about measuring a nation income. You can, by the way, interrupt, dear sisters and brothers, if you have some inquiry during the presentations. Okay, we start now, the national income. And here is the basic material given for those who just study Introduction to Macroeconomics. I do sure that if you have any background in social sciences when you were in senior high school, I guess that you will be easily understand and digest this kind of material. Okay, the distinction between microeconomics and macroeconomics that you have already learned, whereby the main difference of these two branches of economics is due to the scope or the coverage of the study. The micro in the very smaller, whereby they learn about how to make decisions among household firms and how they interact with one another in the market. And the second one is that the macroeconomic study is a whole, whereby the main goals is related with the changes of economics, mainly to household, firms, and market at once. So microeconomics is part and parcel of macroeconomics. And now we are focused on the macroeconomic studies. And here there are some issues that we have studied last week. I want to hear the voice of Adisena. Brother Adisena, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Could you please read this issue, this statement, Adi, please?
Okay. Macroeconomics. Macroeconomics answer question like this: why is the income high in some countries and low in other?
Yes. And the second one, third one, please.
Why do price rapidly in some time periods while they are more stable in others? And why do production and employment expand in some years and contract in others?
Okay, thank you. So there are some issues.
Yes.
The next one, we go to the role of data. In order to answer the question that you raised just now, Adisena, we have to understand as well how to understand the data. To see whether there's a problem, you first need a data. Otherwise, you will not be able to come up with the solutions. Okay, the role of data is very crucial. Could you please read Brother Hairil Fikri? I want to ask you one by one letter. Worry, please. Hairil, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Could you please read the screen, the rule of data?
Oh, of course.
1 until 3, please.
Okay, okay. Wait. The role of data in macroeconomics that are crucial. 1. Data help policymakers see what problems, if any, need to be addressed. Second, data help macroeconomics identify identify
Why?
the theory. Identify the theories that make correct prediction and the theories that make incorrect prediction. Third, data often reveal interesting puzzles that macroeconomics theories need to solve.
Okay. In general, the role of data is to assist you to make decisions towards any particular problem that face in macroeconomics environments. This is the role of data. Okay, now we go to the next part, the total income. So if you learn about macroeconomics, we have to learn about the total income. Recall that we need to measure the health of economy. Right now, we are in the process of recessions. It means that the health of the economy is going bad. How we measure to what extent the recession is going to be severe time by time? By looking at the total income. When judging whether economy is doing well or poorly, it is natural to look at the total income that everyone in economy is earning. So if you have income and your friend has income, the accumulation of all income will be the national income. And here, total income, we can temporarily enjoy a high standard of living even if total income is low. So if you want to know, sisters and brothers, to what extent the countries is a poor or they have been a developed nations, so the basic measurement is by looking at the total income. So how you can measure that Singapore is better compared to Indonesia? How you measure that Sudan is better compared to Indonesia? Of course, you can compare them by looking at the income that they earn every year. And if we talk about income, we have the term of GDP. Okay, Brother Ilham, could you please read, Brother Ilham? What is GDP?
Gross domestic product is one measure of a country's total income. There are other measures of total income, but GDP is the most popular measure.
Okay, Brother Ilham. GDP is gross national income. So if you see the details here, GDP, there are some keywords. Don't worry, I will ask these terms during the examinations later. GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. GDP also the total expenditures of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. It is also the total income earned from all productive activity in the domestic economy. So therefore, the keywords here, the first is final good and services, not intermediate good or services. What intermediate process? Intermediate means that this product is going to be reproduced in order to obtain the final goods. Yeah. The second one is that final goods are those goods that do not disappear in the process of the productions of some other for sale good. It means that this final good will be the one that will be purchased by others, because this good is considered to be the final process, yeah, that enable everybody to own this good or services. A pencil is a final good because one produce, it is ready for use by its final users. You can imagine the wood, the graphite, and other material that disappear in the pencil are not final goods. You see that the pencil is composed by several elements. Yeah, they are woods, graphite, and other material that compose into pencil. But we do not look at the components as the final goods, but we look at the pencil itself as the final goods that will be sold or purchased by customers. The market value is counted when the market value of pencil is counted. So the market value will be there if you already selling this pencil in the market. So counting them separately in GDP would be counting them twice. So if you want to know to what extent the final good or services, please just take the market value of final goods, not the intermediate, not the wood, not the graphite, but the pencils. So if you count the wood, the graphite, and the pencil, you will count them twice. The market value will be double or not real. Any questions so far? Rian, any question, Rian?
No, sir. It's
Clear,
clear.
yeah? Okay. What is GDP? I will share to you this slide. You can just open the video later. Okay, now we go to the type of GDP. We have two types of GDP, nominal and real GDP. This categorizations is important in order to we measure a nation productive activity so that the numbers can be compared across time. Let me see the difference. Okay, here's the examples. Okay, here. GDP comes into two flavors or two categories. The first is nominal GDP, or called GDP at current prices. The real GDP called GDP at constant price. What are different? You will see later. So when you see or hear a discussion of GDP, be sure to ask nominal or real. So if you have a discussion later in the class or you're writing a paper, please ensure and asking to the authors what type of GDP that is used, whether nominal or real. Supposed to be or should be real, because real is the total output that really exists in the market. Could you please read, Rian, the next screen?
Gross domestic product nominal. Nominal GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. The market value is calculated using current prices, the prices that prevailed when the production took place. For example, the nominal GDP of the United States in 2018 was 20 25.02 billion, according to the U.S. Department of Commerce. Given a mid-year population of 3 to 7.436, the per capita nominal GDP was 62.53.
Okay, so nominal GDP actually is the total value of the market. The next one, Rian. Could you please read Sister Alia Apabil? Gross domestic product real.
Gross domestic product real. Real GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced with a country in a given period of time. The market value is calculated using constant price, which are the price that prevailed in a benchmark year called the base year. For example,
okay. Enough? Okay, you see, Sister Alia and Rian, from real and nominal, what is the main difference? The main difference is in the GDP nominal, the market value is calculated using current prices. But in real GDP, by using the constant price. And the constant price here is used also base year, tahun dasar. Yeah. Okay, let us see by the example. Next slide. Here the example. Can you see the example, sisters, brothers? Okay, here we look at the calculation a bit. Okay, here we have two goods, apples and orange. And the price of apples 2015, 16, 17, 50, 100, and 150. Quantity 10, 20, 20. Oranges, price 20, blah, blah, and quantity, blah, blah. And nominal GDP here is how much in 2015. So the way is you just add up the price times quantity at that respective year, and you sum up with the other goods. Apples plus oranges, here 1,500. And 16 here also 100 times 20 and plus 30 times 100. And 17 also. And you got the numbers. And here in terms of GDP nominals, so we do select that the best year here is 2015. It means that 2015 is your reference year. And here is how much the GDP real 2015. You just calculate by multiplying 50 times 10 for the apples, and the orange 20 times 50. So you have here the same as nominal GDP. And 2016 you have now 50, the price of apple, yeah, and 20. And 20 times 100. What is the difference? The difference is you are using the price of the base year, 2015. But the quantity just follows the quantity at respective year. Can you see the difference now? And the same time is 2017. You use the 50 here as the reference rate times 20, the quantity 2017, and plus 20 times 200. You got 5,000. You see, sisters and brothers, in 2016, there is a difference in terms of GDP, nominal and real GDP. Real GDP is lower compared to the nominal GDP, either in 2016 or 2017. Any questions? Any questions, sisters?
No, sir.
Clear, yeah? Don't worry, I will ask you in the examinations. The next one, here. Once you have already got the nominal and real GDP, now we can calculate the growth rate. What is the formula? New value minus old value over old value times 100. Here the growth rate is, for example, 2016 is 5,000 minus 100 and 1,500, and here over 1,500 you got and times 100, yeah? You got 233, yeah. And the next one also here, you can get 160. And in terms of real GDP, you also got 167. It does mean that if you use the two different kind of GDP, you will obtain different growth rate, whereby the nominal GDP here is somehow and often higher compared to the real GDP. Why it happens? Because the real GDP, you calculate the real value. The price is not fluctuated, but in nominal GDP, you are using the thing that fluctuation over time, whereby that the price is not standardized, and then you just use it at respective year, so that somehow this price does not capture the real thing, yeah, in the market, because the price is fluctuated over time. But in real GDP, you use the same price that has been standardized according to the base year. The example of the GDP and gross, nominal and real. The red one is the nominal, the real is the blue one. The real is the red one, sorry. And here you can see the growth over time. And here's the growth rate. The growth rate of the gross domestic product. And the real, the red one. The red one is the real, and the flows here is lower over time. Yeah. Okay, you can see here the video letter, and then the GDP deflator now. Next one. Brother Rian, could you please read, Brother Rian, GDP deflator?
It's not.
Yes. Okay.
Wait.
Can you
The
read?
GDP. Yeah. The GDP deflator. The GDP deflator for the year. Why?
Why?
For a specified base year is calculated as follows: GDP deflator y equals nominal GDP per real GDP times 100.
So what is the basic idea of the GDP deflator? So you see that we have two kind of GDP here, GDP nominal and GDP real. The GDP deflator intends to come up with one number. So you have one representative numbers so that you can use it as comparisons among years, whether this year's is better or worse than before, because you have already compared between the nominal and real GDP in the same time. Before, in the calculation, you just compare between nominal and real time 100. Let me see the examples. Okay, here you have also, you have the nominal here and you have the real here. So if the question is how much the GDP deflator in 2015, you just comparing 100, 1,500 over 1,500 times 100. You got 100. And the next one, 2016, 5,000 over 3,000 times 100. You got 170. And you got 260 then. So by looking at this one, you can see the growth, isn't it, sisters and brothers? Whereby the economy year by year is increasing from 100 grows to 167 and grows again to 260. So by using this GDP deflator, basically you try to portray the development of economic and to what extent the healthy or the soundness of the economy year by year. Okay, could you please read, Brother Ilham?
The GDP deflator. The GDP deflator is a measure of the overall level of the prices of the final goods and services produced within a country during a given period of time. And its growth rate is therefore a measure of the rate of inflation.
Okay, so the next application of the GDP deflator basically direct you to calculating the inflation rate. Here the example. Here you have the GDP deflator 100, 167, and 260. So how much the inflation? The inflation here is of 2016, 167 minus 100, whereby 100 here is the previous year, over the previous year, 100 times 100. So that the inflation rate in 2016 is 67%. The next example here is how much the inflation in 2017. So you just take 260 minus 167, yeah, and then over 167 times 100, so you got 55.69%. So if I ask you a question, how much the inflation rate in 2017 is 55.69. Okay, any other questions? Ada pertanyaan? Silakan.
Pak, dia mau nanya.
Silakan, please. Raise your question.
With bahasa nggak apa-apa?
Ya, dicampur, mix.
Why old value using 2016, not 2015?
Okay, because you are asked now the rate of inflation of 2016. So you just look at this formula. Grow rate here, the yellow one, yellow black, yellow box. So the new one here, the new value is 2016. So you are asked to for the rate of inflation is 2016. Understand now?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you can speak English now. Any other questions, please? Okay, next. Okay, here I show you the picture how to calculate GDP deflator. GDP deflator for 2019 with base year 2012 equal to market value of all domestically produced final goods and services produced in 2019 at 29 prices. Offer here times 100. So you got 300 now. The same time, yeah, the same like before. Here, the same as before. And here is the other examples. So here, for example, you have two kind of goods. Yeah. Here, 2013 until 15. And here's the details. And now, how you got the GDP deflator? The first steps, please calculate the nominal GDP by taking just 1 times 100 plus 2 times 50 and you got 200. Please do the same ways as before for 2014 and 2015. And you got here the results. And the next one, the second step, please do calculate the real GDP base year 2013. So if you are informed about 2013, it does mean that you have to use 2013 as your base year. So all the prices of the goods at every respective year must use the price of 2013. Here the example. The price are the same. Yeah, because the price of 2013 only one. But the quantity is following the year. And just add with another goods where the base year are the same and you got the result. And now the last steps, calculating the GDP deflator then, comparing the nominal and real times 100. And you got here the GDP deflator. Okay, the next one here, no need, just the examples, you can just read by your own. Here the examples, the price level based on the GDP deflator is increasing. The trend is positive. Yeah. So, but if you can calculate the GDP deflator, you can see the trend of the price year by year, whether increasing or decreasing. And here's the inflation rate. You can get the fluctuation here. If the fluctuation is above the horizontal line, it means that the inflation is quite higher or positive, and the vice versa. Okay, could you please read Brother Naufal, the GDP deflator, Naufal, please.
The GDP deflator. Why call it a deflator? Nominal GDP changed from one year to the next partly because of inflation. Real GDP, on the other hand, change because of change in production alone. The GDP deflator can convert nominal GDP to real GDP by deflating the effect of inflation in nominal GDP.
Okay, good, brother. So here you can understand, sisters and brothers, what is the aims of using a deflator? Because if you use the GDP nominal, so the numbers or the amount of total income is not real at all, because this GDP has been inflated by the change of prices, namely inflations. But in real GDP, the inflation has been taken out from the total income, so that the real GDP only calculates the change productions alone. So the GDP deflator here attempts to convert the nominal GDP to real GDP by taking out the effect on inflations. So you want to take out the inflation from the total income at a very respective year, because inflation somehow look like balloon, so it is not real. So if you calculate the nominal GDP, actually you don't get the real numbers to what extent the nation has been developed, and the way around. Here are the examples, the other calculations. Okay, any other question before we continue? The component of GDP. Any questions?
No, sir.
Understand so far, sisters, brothers?
Insyaallah.
Insya Allah ya. Insya Allahnya kok pelan gitu kan? Tak meyakinkan kayaknya. Okay, I cannot share to you through the my class because the my class is going trouble now. I will share with you the slides once the class ended. Okay, next one, the components of GDP. I want to hear the voice of Carmila. Ada Sister Carmila?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you please read this, sister?
Component of GDP. We need to pay attention not only to the total expenditure on all final goods and services made in the country, that is GDP. We also need to watch where the expenditure is coming from. That way, when there is recession, we'll know which sector needs the most attention. GDP, consumption spending, investment spending, government spending, exports, minus imports.
Okay, thank you. So GDP is composed by 4 components: consumption, investment, governments, and international trade. And here we are using the expenditures approach to calculate the GDP, whereby the consumption here is the expenditures of the household. Investment is the expenditures of business. Government's spending is the expenditures of government entities. And international trade is the expenditures of foreigners. Yeah. Okay, could you just read Sister Nuha.
Yes,
Q.
sir. Q.
Yeah.
Why
Could you
do we
please
subtract?
from Q?
What?
Yes, please read.
Okay. Why do we subtract imports? GDP is the market value of all final made in USA goods, but consumption, investment, and government purchase all include spending on foreign goods. Therefore, to make the two sides of the equation the same, we must take out all the imports.
Okay, so subtract mean dikurangi, ya, mengurangi. Yeah, because all of the consumption, investment, and government, yeah, has been related with the international spending. Yeah, so that we need to subtract the import. Okay, the component here, the consumption C, investment I, government spending here look like now the government spends some subsidy to the society that affected most by the pandemic. And the net export minus imports. Here the example, the GDP of the United States. By these tables, which one is the most sectors that compose the GDP in the US? Brother Rian.
Yes, sir.
What the sectors that most compose the GDP in the US? Hello, Rian?
Yes, sir. What, sir? Can you repeat?
Consumption.
Consumption what, sir?
Okay, consumption in the most sectors here. You see here, Rian, consumption, the GDP total 15,000.
Yeah.
Consumption here 11,000. Investment 1,000. Government spending 3,000. Net export minus.
Yeah.
So the sectors that compose the GDP in the US is consumption. Yeah, because of the consumption is composed through household spending. Household composes the biggest dominance components in the GDP. Sehingga kalau Anda ingin memastikan suatu negara itu eksis dalam konteks GDP-nya tinggi, maka pastikan konsumsinya juga tinggi. Karena consumption here composes the largest numbers, yeah, among other sectors. Yeah, even net export is negative, the smallest one. Government spending purchases only very few, small, even investment as well. Ini adalah komponennya ini, komposisinya. 71% konsumsi, 13, 20, minus 4. Ya. Any questions, sisters, brother? No. Nah, ini the details. You can read by your own. Consumption here, a share of GDP, you can see the graph is increasing year by year, including in Indonesia. Ya, juga sama. Ini investment, share a GDP, yeah, up and down. It means that not stagnant or fluctuated. Government purchases as well seems to be constant, not quite significant. Export and imports as well here, you can see quite low or even negative. Okay, here we go to the next part. Okay, this one. Could anybody help me to answer this question? Sister, I want to just ask to the sister here, Rosa. Are you there, Rosa? Sister Rosa, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Could you please answer these questions in the screen? Could you please read and answer the questions? Sister, are you there? Sister Rosa? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Could you answer the questions in the screen, please? Could you read the questions? Sister Rosa? Sister Rosa, are you there? Are you with us? Rosa Indira, are you there? Okay, Rosa. Seems to be not very focused. Rafif, are you there, Rafif?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you please read the question, Rafif?
Is GDP a good measure of economic well-being?
Okay, could you answer, please?
No, but it is the best one-number measure we have.
According to your understanding, not reading in the screen, do you think that GDP is the good measure of economic well-being?
Yes, I think yes.
Yes. Why?
Because it's the standard we are using. I don't know.
Yeah, the answer is very simple. Okay. Because GDP measures the total goods and services produced by the people in the country. So if the GDP is higher, it means that the people who produce the goods and services is much better than before, and the way around. It's just the simple answer. Okay, the next one. There is a lot of missing in GDP. So if you are working as the volunteer work, illegal work, leisure, environment disasters, and it is considered to be missing in the GDP. Yeah, your income is not calculated in the GDP because you are considered to be underground economy, not calculated in the GDP. And here is just figures that shows the poverty rate, yeah, inequality, yeah. Then this basis measurement is based on the GDP. So if the GDP is higher, usually the poverty rate is decreasing, yeah, and inequality also decreasing if the GDP increases. So here, leisure reduces GDP. Leisure artinya adalah liburan. GDP does not count illegal work. GDP does not count work at home. GDP does not count volunteer work. GDP ignores environmental damage. GDP ignores consumer surplus. Okay, could you please read, brother, brother. I want to call you, brother Raihan. Are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, could you please read this statement, Robert Kennedy, on GDP.
Okay. A gross domestic product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play. It does not include the beauty of our poetry or the strength of our marriage, the intelligence of our public debate, or the integrity of our public officials. It measures neither our courage, nor our wisdom, nor our devotion to our country. It measures everything in short except that which makes life worthwhile. And it can tell us everything about America except why we are proud that we are Americans.
Okay. Next one. What does it mean? It does mean that GDP wanted to tell you that GDP somehow does not cover all the thing about a wealth a nations. To what extent the state prosper sejahtera, because the GDP sometimes misses the underground economy that counted to be a large part in a particular economy. Seperti halnya black markets, illegal works, working at homes, yeah. So all of these things are not calculated in the GDP. Yeah. Why? Because this activity are not recorded as part and parcel in the sectors that compose the GDP. Look like the consumptions, investment, government spending, and international trade. But they are exist in the real life. Okay, sisters and brothers, any questions, please? Or you have any discussions? Silahkan, ada pertanyaan? Bebas. Yes, Rian? You want to ask?
Itu materinya ada di my class kan, sir?
I have not uploaded in my class because I am going to be lazy now. My class is not cooperative at all. When you open the my class, it seems to be very long waiting to open the my class. Betul ya?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mine is error, miss.
Yeah, mine is also error. Maybe I will send through your class group or WhatsApp. Okay, any other questions or discussions? Or you want to ask something else, please?
Maybe I have some questions, sir.
Please, brother Dani Irfan Rahmat.
Excuse me, is the GDP only calculate for those that have an effect on the country?
What do you mean?
Is the GDP only calculate for those that have an effect on the country?
Yeah, so GDP basically is calculated through several sectors. So if they are among or included in these sectors, they will be calculated and part of the GDP. What are they? The first is consumptions conducted by household. The second one is investment conducted by the firms or companies. Government spending by the government. Export and import by international or domestic citizen. So as long as the sectors that you mentioned just now included in those sectors, they will be affecting the GDP, brother.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions, Dani? Any other questions?
No. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay, welcome. Okay, Rafif, sorry, Rafif, I don't see your hand. You raise your hand.
Okay. I want to ask, in the PowerPoint, it's stated that GDP is the best measurement for economic growth. But I want to ask, is there an alternative for measuring economic growth besides GDP?
Okay, thank you, Brother Rafif. For the economic growth, so far, the United Nations or IMF, International Monetary Funds, proxy the economic well-being or the welfare of economy by taking the total income of a country, whereby measured by GDP. But in order to calculate the GDP, basically there are three approaches. So there is no any other proxy so far, brother, to measure the country welfare. But the approaches to calculate the GDP could be in the form of expenditures, income, and the third one is productions. Yeah. So the expenditures, it is about consumption, investment, government spending, and international trade. But the income there, by taking the rent, interest, profit, yeah, and the production here by taking the total price times the product. So far, I don't see any other proxy rather than GDP. But the approach to calculate GDP could be varies. Rafif.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Most welcome, Rafif. Your question is very critical. Next one, sisters, brothers. You are feel free to ask.
Sir, I want to ask about is GDP is the reason to be a developed country?
Yeah, thank you very much. Engra, Sia, Putri, Johanna, yeah. Okay, therefore, because of we don't have any single measurement at all rather than the GDP. So the classification of the country's development is based on the level of GDP, where the GDP itself also is divided by the total numbers of populations, whereby the GDP per capita. So if the GDP per capita is below the 3,000, so this country is categorized as underdeveloped country. If the GDP per capita is 3,000 until 7 or 8,000 per capita per year, US dollars, yeah. So this country considered to be developing. And if the country is more than 8,000 US dollars per year per capita, is developed countries. Therefore, sisters and brothers, GDP is still the most and appropriate measurement to what extent the country has been developed or underdeveloped or developing. Even though you see that in reality, somehow the GDP is not really represent the degree of development in a particular country. This one, Sister Engra.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Any other questions? We have 20 minutes left.
And sir,
Yes.
how about the
Forgot to mention your name.
yeah?
Yeah, please.
Oh, how about the communist country?
What does it mean?
As we know, maybe kalau kita lihat from the investment, maybe the investment at communist country sangat kecil dibandingkan with other country yang menganut ekonomi apa namanya? Ekonomi bebas. Not economy socialist. Therefore, maybe the GDP at the communist country can bisa lebih kecil gitu, ya sir. Kemungkinannya akan lebih kemungkinannya GDP di negara komunis itu sangat kecil.
Okay. Thank you for your response, brother. These very good questions. So in this word, we have some categories of countries' approach in developing the economy. The first is the closed economy, such as North Korea. Yeah, in America, we have also one country in America oceans. Yeah, and we have a country that in the middle. Yeah. They are closed but open. So for those a country that is closed, for sure, if you look at the component of the GDP, consumption, investment, government spending, and international trade, perhaps this country will be developed by taking more serious policy through consumption, investment, and government spending. Because they are closed, they are closing the gate from other country to enter. And this country usually is quite traditional and lagging behind in terms of the economic development and capacity. But for the country that quite opened, such as United States and some of the country in the West Europe, they open the economy and welcome to international transactions. Yeah. Therefore, the component of GDP must be higher compared to the closed economy. And the country which are in the middle, they are in the process of developing, such as Indonesia, yeah, Malaysia, and other ASEAN countries. So my answer is that, sisters and brothers, the country's capacity to grow actually is determined through 4 factors. The first is to what extent the consumption level, to what extent the investment, to what extent the government spending, to what extent the international trade. Whereby the first 3, consumption, investment, and government spending, is within the control of the domestic country. But the last one, the 4th one, is beyond the capacity because it deals with the international or cross-border transactions. Therefore, if you are close country or close economy, your economic growth will only depend on C plus E plus G, not international, and the way around. But even though you are closing economy, you can keep up the growth higher if you can pump up the consumption level and investment level in your country. It means that you have very self-reliance. You have to develop your self-capacity and productivity to ensure that your internal capacity is able to boost your economic growth. But the main requirement somehow, the country that is considered close must have enough resources, either natural or human resources. Such as North Korea, they have enough maybe natural resources and they have enough human resources. So they can keep growing even though they are closing the border. But you can compare with Singapore, small country, there's not enough capacity in terms of the natural resources. What Singapore has so far? In terms of consumption, very low. How many population in Singapore? Do you know? Only 5 million people. So consumption will be lower because the household is lower. Investment as well there also quite low. And government spending, for sure, because the people is quite small, the government spending is not that much as Indonesia. So the government's policy depends on international transactions. Therefore, if you visit Singapore someday, Singapore developed very advanced port, pelabuhan. Yeah. In fact, the Singapore has already developed the reclamations land. Yeah, so they can extend the numbers of land and that they have from 400 kilometers square to now around almost 800 kilometers square, almost double. This is the answer, see, brother. Right, tadi. Any other question, brother?
No, sir. I think it's enough for me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Please. Any other questions? Enough, brothers and sisters? Okay, if you have no questions so far, I will put some exercises or questions at home in my class and should be submitted by next week. Yeah, so hopefully my class will be okay in the next week. So you can just do and submit individually, and the material will be connected with the discussion that we have discussed just now. Okay, any other questions before we end the session, please? In terms of your attendance, I will help you to click your attendance because you cannot access the my class. Doesn't matter. Okay, enough, sisters and brothers? Any questions?
No.
Okay, no questions. I think enough. So we end sessions for this month, and we'll discuss and meet again next week. Please, you can refer to the course outline given in the my class for the next meeting, and you can refer to the textbook get uploaded in the my class for your additional reading. Okay?
Okay,
Enough?
sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for your very kind attentions, sisters and brothers. And I have already sent the slide in the groups, WhatsApp group, but because of the file is quite huge, still in the process of sending.
Okay, sir.
That we end this forum with hamdalah together.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Rabbil alamin. Thank you very much for your kind attention, sisters and brothers. Yes, next. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
wabarakatuh.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir.
Terima kasih,
Thank you,
Pak.
sir.